The sharp crack of a precisely aimed shot echoed through the hallowed halls of the Premier Marksman Society, instantly followed by a wave of impressed applause from the affluent clientele, their attire a blend of high-end sporting fashion. Alistair Thorne lowered his meticulously crafted firearm, a self-satisfied grin spreading across his sun-kissed features as the digital target display registered yet another perfect center. This was his domain, a realm where privilege, influence, and honed skill forged an almost tangible barrier separating the elite from the rest. If you've ever felt overlooked, dismissed, or rendered invisible, you might want to witness what transpired next, the unexpected disruption that would send ripples through this exclusive world. Near the grand entrance of the prestigious shooting range stood Elara Vance, clutching a well-worn leather satchel. Her simple, unadorned jacket and practical trousers stood in stark contrast to the designer gear surrounding her, making her presence as conspicuous as a wildflower in a manicured garden. At 38, she was beyond the age of casual admiration in this circle and lacked the visible markers of success that commanded attention. The reception attendant, a young man with impeccably styled hair and a practiced, almost dismissive smile, glanced up, his gaze sliding away as if Elara were a mere inconvenience. "Excuse me," Elara said softly, her voice carrying a quiet steadiness. "I'd like to register for the open practice session today." The attendant looked up again, this time allowing his gaze to linger briefly on her sensible footwear before returning to his screen. "Membership privileges only," he replied, his tone conveying a clear lack of interest. Elara took a slow breath, retrieving a slightly creased envelope. "I have a guest pass. It was a gift." Across the expansive range, Alistair noticed the newcomer. At 45, he was at the zenith of his prowess, a 5-time national champion, an Olympic gold medalist, and the face of a renowned firearm manufacturer's premium line. His family's substantial fortune had afforded him access to elite training from his youth, and his innate talent had taken him the rest of the way. Well, Alistair drawled, his voice carrying across the hushed room. "Seems someone mistook this for the local firing range." His companions chuckled in unison, drawing further attention to Elara, who was making her way towards the basic lanes, her gaze fixed on the polished floor. Serafina Dubois, the club's director and a former accomplished competitive shooter herself, cast a disapproving glance at Alistair's remark but remained silent. Elara selected a lane at the far end of the basic range. With deliberate movements, she placed her satchel on the narrow shelf and carefully unwrapped a package bound in plain cloth. Within lay a standard, no-frills sidearm, functional, but a far cry from the customized masterpieces wielded by the club's members. Alistair and his entourage had moved closer, their interest piqued by the prospect of some casual amusement. 10 credits says she can't even hit the paper, one quipped. Alistair scoffed. "Make it 10,000. I'd wager she's never held a firearm in her life." Alistair sauntered over to Elara's station. "Pardon me," he said, his exaggerated politeness dripping with condescension. "Are you quite certain you're in the correct establishment? This isn't a social gathering." Elara finally looked up, her steady amber eyes meeting Alistair's with a directness that momentarily unsettled him. "I'm simply here to practice," she stated quietly. Alistair recovered quickly. "Practice? My dear, this is a place for serious competitors. 10,000 credits says you can't hit the center from 50 meters. Elara's expression remained neutral, but a flicker of something unreadable crossed her eyes. "I don't have that kind of money," she replied. Alistair's smile widened. "If, by some extraordinary chance, you make the shot, I pay. If you miss, you leave and never return." "Agreed." Serafina had approached during the exchange, a hint of concern in her features. "Mr. Thorne, perhaps we should allow our guest to practice undisturbed." Alistair waved her off without looking. "Stay out of this, Serafina. Just a friendly wager." Elara's gaze drifted to her left hand, where a simple silver band encircled her ring finger. She turned it once, a subtle gesture that only a keen observer would have noticed. "All right," she said softly. Alistair's eyebrows shot up in surprise before his face settled into a triumphant smirk. "Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a spectacle." No one noticed the subtle shift in Elara's posture as she picked up her sidearm. Her spine straightened almost imperceptibly, her shoulders relaxed, and her feet shifted into a perfectly balanced stance. No one recognized the expert grip and the controlled breathing pattern. And no one knew that the simple silver ring on her finger had once belonged to a legendary operative from an elite covert unit, a master of precision marksmanship. 3 years prior, Elara had stood beneath a somber autumn sky, the sharp, echoing volleys of the Honor Guard's rifles slicing through the heavy silence of the National Memorial grounds. The folded national banner pressed against her chest felt impossibly weighty as she watched her partner's casket being lowered. Commander Elara Vance had served his nation with unwavering dedication for 15 years, his exceptional skills as a precision marksman earning him both commendations and the whispered moniker Shadow among his peers. The official report cited a training exercise gone wrong. Elara knew better. There were aspects of Reese's work that would forever remain classified. They had met in a quiet coastal town where Reese was on temporary assignment. Elara was working as a librarian, her life as ordered as the Dewey Decimal System. Their meeting at a local bookstore had stretched from polite inquiries into hours of conversation. They married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended by a few close friends and Reese's tightly knit team. Life with someone in his profession had taught Elara to live with absence and uncertainty. Reese would disappear for weeks, sometimes months, returning with new, unspoken scars and dreams he couldn't share. "I wish I could tell you everything," he would say, his callous thumb gently tracing her jawline. "But know this, you're the reason I fight to come home." It was during one extended period stateside, after a demanding operation that had left Reese with a minor injury, that he first took Elara to a shooting range. "If I'm going to be away so much," he had explained, adjusting her stance with gentle hands, "I want to know you can protect yourself." What began as a safety measure evolved into something more, a shared activity that offered Elara a glimpse into her partner's world. Reese proved to be a patient instructor, and Elara an unexpectedly gifted student. "You're a natural," he'd whispered the first time she hit the center. "You have the 3 essential elements: steady hands, keen vision, and an unwavering calm under pressure." Over the next 3 years, whenever Reese was home, they would practice together. He taught her everything: proper stance, breath control, sight alignment, trigger discipline. "Precision marksmanship isn't about aggression," he would explain. "It's about absolute mastery of your body, your breath, your focus." Elara absorbed every lesson, finding an unexpected sense of peace in the ritual. Those sessions at the range became sacred moments of connection that transcended words. Sometimes, Reese's teammates would join them. "Boss never shuts up about your progress," one of them, a quiet man named Jasper, had confided. "Says you're a better natural shot than half the recruits he's trained." The last time they went shooting together was days before his final deployment. Reese had been uncharacteristically quiet, his attention more focused on observing Elara than on his own shots. "Promise me something," he said, his voice rough against her ear. "Promise me you'll keep practicing, even when I'm not here." Elara had nodded, not fully comprehending the weight behind his request. After the memorial, Elara couldn't bring herself to visit a range. Reese's equipment remained locked away, untouched. She moved to a new city for a fresh start, taking a position as a research analyst where no one knew her as the partner of a fallen hero. Until last week, when a package arrived from Jasper containing a guest pass to the Premier Marksman Society and a brief, handwritten note: "He would want you to keep your promise. 3 years is long enough." Now standing in the Premier Marksman Society, with Alistair Thorne's arrogant challenge hanging in the air, Elara felt something stir within her, a flicker of the person she had been before grief had cast its long shadow. As she lifted the sidearm, muscle memory took over. Her world narrowed to 3 points: herself, the weapon, and the target. Elara took a deep breath, held it for a moment, exhaled slowly, and squeezed the trigger. The shot rang out, crisp and precise, in the hushed range. Through the settling echo, the mechanical whir of the target retrieval system seemed unnaturally loud. Alistair maintained his amused expression, though a hint of uncertainty flickered in his eyes as he noted Elara's textbook stance. The target moved slowly towards them, building suspense with each mechanical click. When the paper target finally arrived, a perfect hole marked the dead center of the bullseye. The silence that followed was profound, a vacuum of sound where Alistair and his entourage struggled to process what they were seeing. Elara calmly placed the sidearm on the counter, her expression unchanged. Alistair snatched the target, examining it closely. "Beginner's luck," he finally declared, a sharp edge entering his voice. Anyone can get lucky once. Serafina stepped forward, her professional mask momentarily slipping to reveal genuine admiration. That was an exceptional shot, Ms. Elara supplied quietly. Vance. Elara Vance. Serafina nodded, offering a smile that was both apologetic and impressed. Ms. Vance, perhaps you would like to try our advanced range facilities? Clearly, you are not a beginner. Before Elara could respond, Alistair interjected, hold on. One lucky shot doesn't make her a pro. Let's see if she can do it again. This time with real stakes. An uncomfortable murmur rippled through the growing crowd of spectators. 50,000 credits, Alistair announced, pulling a sleek credit card from his pocket. If you can hit 3 consecutive centers at 75 meters. If you miss even one, you publicly admit you were incredibly fortunate and leave. A distinguished-looking man placed a cautionary hand on Alistair's arm. Alistair, perhaps this isn't necessary. Alistair shrugged off the touch. What's the matter? Afraid your little fluke won't work 3 times in a row? Elara briefly considered simply walking away. She had come today only because of her promise to Reese, not to engage in public displays. But something in Alistair's dismissive arrogance ignited a dormant fire within her, a sense of injustice, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever been underestimated or excluded. I'll accept your challenge, Elara said softly, on one condition. If I win, the 50,000 credits goes to the Veterans Support Fund. Alistair hesitated only briefly before nodding. Fine. It's not as if you'll win anyway. As Elara moved to the 75-meter mark, Serafina approached her. Ms. Vance, you should know that Mr. Thorne holds the club record at this distance. No one has matched his score in 5 years. Elara nodded, appreciating the warning. Thank you for your concern, Ms. Dubois, but I'll be fine. Serafina studied her, noting the quiet confidence that seemed at odds with Elara's unassuming appearance. Alistair was making a spectacle of the event. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to the substantial crowd, we are about to witness either the most impressive fluke in shooting history or the most embarrassing failure. 3 center shots at 75 meters with a standard sidearm, virtually impossible for an amateur. Elara loaded fresh magazines methodically as she prepared. Memories of Reese's lessons filtered through her mind. When the pressure mounts, he had told her, rely on your training. Let your body remember what your mind might forget under stress. The range had fallen completely silent, all attention focused on the unfolding confrontation. For the first shot, Elara took slightly longer to aim, adjusting to the increased distance. The sharp crack of the gun was followed by another perfect center. Alistair's jaw tightened visibly. The second shot came more quickly, Elara adjusting her stance almost imperceptibly before firing. Another center. Before taking the third shot, Elara turned the silver ring on her finger once, feeling Reese's presence as strongly as if he were standing beside her. The final shot split the air and hit dead center again. Alistair's face had drained of color, his expression frozen between disbelief and fury. Serafina returned with the 3 targets, displaying them for verification. There was no question, 3 perfect shots at a distance that would challenge even seasoned marksmen. Congratulations, Ms. Vance, Serafina said, unable to keep the admiration from her voice. That was remarkable. Alistair snatched the targets, examining them with increasing desperation. This is impossible, he hissed. No one walks in off the street and shoots like this. She must have cheated somehow. Elara remained calm, though a steely edge entered her voice. I believe we had an agreement, Mr. Thorne. Agreement with a cheat. Alistair's voice rose. I'm not paying 50,000 credits based on some trick. Serafina intervened. Mr. Thorne, Ms. Vance's performance was witnessed by dozens of members, including prominent figures. The shots were legitimate. Alistair rounded on her, his finger jabbing the air inches from her face. Know your place, Serafina. 1 word from me to the board, and you're finished here. The threat silenced Serafina, but her expression hardened. Elara watched the exchange with quiet intensity. If you're accusing me of cheating, Elara said evenly, Perhaps we should move this discussion to a more private setting. Alistair misinterpreted her intent. Private? So you can avoid the consequences? No, let's settle this right here. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I propose a real challenge. 1 week from today, a formal competition. Me versus our mystery sharpshooter. 10 stations, varying distances, with club-provided equipment to ensure everything's fair. Elara realized she had unintentionally stepped into something much larger than a simple challenge. Part of her wanted to retreat back into anonymity, but a stronger part knew she couldn't back down. I accept, she said quietly. Same terms. If I win, 50,000 credits to the Veteran Support Fund. Alistair's smile didn't reach his eyes. Deal. And when I win, you publicly explain whatever trick you used today. As the crowd dispersed, Serafina approached Elara again. That was either very brave or very foolish, she said. Alistair doesn't lose gracefully, and he has considerable influence here. Elara nodded, the adrenaline fading, leaving her feeling drained. I didn't come here looking for trouble. I just wanted to practice. Serafina studied her thoughtfully. Yet, you shot like a professional. Who are you really, Elara Vance? Elara gathered her belongings. Just someone keeping a promise, she replied, her voice barely audible. What neither Elara nor anyone else knew was that Alistair was already making a call, instructing his personal assistant to uncover everything about Elara Vance, no matter the cost. The tremor in his voice betrayed more than anger. It revealed fear. Because Alistair had recognized something in Elara's shooting that the others had missed, the unmistakable technique of advanced military training, executed with a precision that couldn't be faked. News of the confrontation spread quickly through the city's elite circles. By evening, Alistair Thorne was inundated with messages from friends, rivals, and journalists eager for details about the mysterious woman who had challenged his supremacy. Seated in his penthouse overlooking the glittering cityscape, his usual post-victory ritual, swirling aged brandy in a crystal snifter, had become a means to quell his frayed nerves. His partner, Vivienne, scrolled through her phone, monitoring the burgeoning social media chatter with growing concern. They're calling her the Phantom Marksman, Vivienne reported. Someone posted a shaky video of her final shot. It's already gone viral. Alistair drained his glass. One lucky day doesn't make her a marksman. By next week, everyone will know she's a fraud. Vivienne looked up, her expression unusually serious. Alistair, those weren't lucky shots. I've watched you compete for years. She's good. Really good. The sharp ring of his phone interrupted their conversation. Alistair checked the caller ID, his posture immediately straightening as he recognized his investigator's number. Tell me you found something, he demanded without preamble. The voice on the other end was apologetic. Not much yet, Mr. Thorne. Elara Vance, 38, works as a senior analyst at a research firm. Moved here 3 years ago. Clean record, pays her taxes, keeps to herself. No social media presence, no competitive shooting background. Alistair's frustration mounted. That's impossible. Nobody shoots like that without training. Dig deeper. After ending the call, Alistair paced the length of his living room. I don't understand. Who is she? Where did she learn to shoot like that? Vivienne sat down, her phone clutched in her hand, watching him with growing unease. Alistair, maybe it's time to let this go. Donate the money, chalk it up as an off day. Alistair stopped abruptly, turning to her with an intensity that made her flinch. This isn't about the money, Vivienne. It's about my reputation. My legacy. Across town, Elara sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. A message from a secure, encrypted channel displayed a brief reply, promise kept. Elara brewed a cup of tea and carried it to her small balcony, the events of the day replaying in her mind. Part of her regretted accepting Alistair's challenge. The attention was unwelcome. Yet, another part felt a strange sense of liberation, as though something long dormant had finally stirred. Her phone buzzed again, displaying an unfamiliar number. After a moment of hesitation, she answered. Ms. Vance, This is Serafina Dubois from the Premier Marksman Society. Elara tensed slightly. Ms. Dubois, what can I do for you? Serafina's voice held a note of urgency. I probably shouldn't be calling you directly, but I felt you deserved a heads up. Alistair has people looking into your background. He's convinced you somehow cheated. Elara closed her eyes briefly. Unsurprising, but disappointing. Thank you for the warning, Ms. Dubois. But I have nothing to hide. Serafina continued, her voice lower. Look, I don't know who you are or where you learned to shoot like that. But Alistair Thorne wields significant influence in this city. His family's involved in everything. If he feels threatened, he can make things difficult for you. Elara appreciated the concern. Years of navigating the periphery of a dangerous profession had taught her about real threats versus mere intimidation. I'll be careful, she promised, but I intend to honor our agreement. After the call, Elara opened a small, intricately carved wooden box. Inside lay Reese's commendations, faded letters, and their wedding photograph. Beneath the carefully folded flag from his memorial service lay Reese's operational logbook, a stark record of training exercises and deployments. She flipped through the pages, finding the entries where he had meticulously documented their practice sessions. His handwriting was precise and unwavering. Elara, 50 meters, 9/10 center hits. Remarkable natural ability. Exceeds baseline for most recruits. The next morning, Elara called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of heading to the office, she drove to a public shooting range on the outskirts of the city, a world away from the Premier Marksman Society's exclusive clientele. For 8 hours, she practiced methodically, revisiting every technique Reese had ingrained in her. Each shot was a silent conversation with his memory, a promise reaffirmed, a connection sustained across the void.